All right, Algebra 2, this video, we're going to be talking about operations with polynomials, starting with multiplying. So we have added and subtracted polynomials before, and you might remember that our general summary for how to do that, we call combine like terms. So we're going to combine any terms that have matching exponents, matching variable and exponents, like x squared plus x squared or anything like that. So we have done that before. We know when we're subtracting, we watch out for negative signs. But when we are multiplying, we have to do it a little bit differently, and we are going to do something you probably are familiar with. We're going to distribute. We're going to use that distributive property, right? So I like to use the analogy of if you go, trick-or-treating, if kids are going trick-or-treating, when you get to each house, you would expect the person at the door to evenly distribute candy to each of you and your two friends. Say there's 3 of you. So this house is going to give everybody candy, and then the next house would also give everybody candy, and so on and so forth. So same thing when we're talking about a polynomial. So here in this example, we have a binomial, 2 terms, multiplied by a trinomial, 3 terms, 1, 2, 3. So we know we are multiplying this because in between them, we don't see a plus sign, we don't see a minus sign, there's just nothing. Okay, that's how we know to multiply. And so we're going to do, and I've got the example down here, so we can use these kind of arrows to visually represent, right? I'm going to do 2x times 5x squared, and I'm going to write the answer, and then 2x times negative 7x, and write the answer. Okay, so you can do that and just write your terms out in a row, but a lot of students like to use a box to visually represent it and organize it, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to take our first polynomial, which 2x minus 3 has 2 terms. So notice we have 2 rows on our box, 2x and then negative 3. And then our other one is a trinomial, so we're going to put that up here, 5x squared minus 7x plus 4. All right, so that's just a way to visually help us organize. Now what we're going to do is multiply each pair of terms and write the answer in the box. Okay, and when we're done, our box will be filled with terms and we can simplify from there. Whoops, sorry for the shaky camera angle. Okay, so 2x times 5x squared. Remember, this is 2x to the 1. It has an imaginary, invisible 1. So we multiply the numbers. 2 times 5 is just 10. For the exponents, we have to add the exponents. So if you want to write yourself a reminder, multiply the numbers, the coefficients, but add the exponents. Okay, because exponents, remember, they function a little differently because here, so 2 times 5 is 10. I have 1x here and 2 with this term. So if we put those 2 terms together, now there's going to be 1, 2, 3 x terms. So this term is now 10x cubed. And now we just repeat the process. So 2x times negative 7x is going to be negative 14x squared. All right, and I know the box is kind of dark, so I'm trying to write over it. Let me use a darker color. See if that helps. Squared. Okay, and then 2x times 4 is going to be 8x. I like to put a plus if it's positive, just so I don't forget. Negative 3 times 5x squared is negative 15x squared. Negative 3 times negative 7x is 21x. And negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. All right, so our box is all filled in. And again, we multiplied our numbers, added our exponents to get all 6 of our new terms. So now we want to write the answer in standard form. So starting from the highest exponent, working our way down. But notice, if there's any like terms, we need to combine them. So you will see the cool thing about doing this box. Here's our x squared terms on this diagonal. Negative 15x squared and negative 14x squared. And then here's our x terms right here. So the other neat thing about the box is it helps organize your terms. So starting with the degree, the highest exponent is 3, so 10x cubed. Let's put these together. So negative 15 plus negative 14 is negative 29. And at this point, as I'm bringing the terms down, I'm leaving the exponents alone. So we did change the exponents as we were filling in the box, but once they're in the box, we leave them. Okay, our x terms here, 21 plus 8 is another 29, 29x, and then minus 12. And so that right there is our fully multiplied polynomial. Okay, so again, you could use the box. You don't have to use the box, though. You could do the same thing and just write all your terms out horizontally, just to show you that would be the first three, and then minus 15x squared, etc. You could just write them all in one long horizontal row and then combine your like terms. Okay, so you have that as an option. You don't have to use the box. A lot of students like it. So then here's just a few more examples to go through. All right, so here we have a monomial times a trinomial, one term multiplied by 3. So if you did a box, it would just be a 1 by 3. All right, but again, if the box is helpful for you, that is okay. And then the other thing I'd advise you on this, like this is 1x to the first power. If it helps, write those on there. We don't typically write them, but if it helps you to remember, put it on there. So 4x squared times 1x squared, 4 times 1 is 4. Whoops. And then x squared times x squared, we add those, x to the fourth. All right, 4 times 1 is 4 again. X squared times x to the 1, 2 plus 1 is 3. And then 4x squared times negative 5, 4 times negative 5 is negative 20, and the x squared just stays there. And notice here, there are no like terms because we don't have any diagonals for the like terms to catch up on. So that one's done. Doing a monomial is pretty quick. It's not too bad. Okay, this middle one is a lot like the example we did up here. If we made our box, it would be 2 by 3, like the one we did up there with 6 spaces. Oops, sorry. So if you want to pause the video and try this one on your own first and see how you do, you could catch back up and check your work. All right, but if not, we'll go through it. So we put 2x and negative 1 here, 3x squared minus 5x plus 6 goes across the top, and then we multiply. So multiply the numbers, add the exponents, so 6x cubed minus 10x squared plus 12x minus 3x squared, negative 1 times negative 5, positive 5x, negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. So we find our like terms lined up across the diagonal, combine them together. Again, just put it in standard form. So start with the highest exponent and then work your way across. Negative 3 and negative 10, negative 13x squared. 5x plus 12x is 17x, and then minus 6. So notice how our final answer has an x cubed, an x squared, an x, and a number term. And none of the like terms are left. Okay, if you tried that one on your own and are hopefully you got that same answer or can see where you may have made a mistake. The biggest issue people run into usually is just multiplying wrong or losing a sign or adding wrong. So just, you can use the calculator to help you calculate the numbers. Just don't type in the x's, only type the numbers. Now this third example here, we have a trinomial times a trinomial. That's a lot of terms. So if you're going to do that with a box, all right, you'd have x squared minus 7x plus 3. All right, so that's going to be 3. And then across the top, for this one, we're going to have x squared minus 1x plus 2. So it's a 3 by 3. It's going to have 9 terms in it. So when you're multiplying a lot of terms, that's really when the box, I think, is most helpful. But again, you could just write them all out in a big long row. Just kind of work carefully. All right. Multiplying our terms, x to the fourth. Again, if you want to pause the video and try it on your own and then come back and see if you match up. Minus x cubed plus 2x squared minus 7x cubed plus 7x squared. Negative 7x times 2, negative 14x. And then plus 3x squared minus 3x plus 6. So we get all our terms multiplied out, and again, we're going to have 3 sets of like terms here, cubes, squares, and x's. So we're going to add all those together, and now let's write our final answer. So we have x to the fourth, negative 7 and negative 1, negative 8x cubed. 3 plus 7 is 10 plus 2, 12x squared. Negative 3, negative 14, negative 17x, and our last term plus 6. So x to the fourth minus 8x cubed plus 12x squared minus 17x plus 6. That's a lot of terms, but again, we started with 9 and combined the like ones and are down to just 5 now. All right, so we're multiplying polynomials. We can do any. You may remember or might be familiar with FOIL, which is an acronym if you're doing like binomials. X minus 2 times x minus 3. First, outside, inside, last. That's a way to multiply, but it only works for a binomial times a binomial. So this method of using a box or writing them out with distributing is going to be best moving forward. Now, last question here. What if there are more than 2? What if there's 3 things to multiply? Sometimes people get so excited distributing, they just start distributing this first term to every other term. That is not actually how it's going to work. If we have more than 2 to multiply, we just do 2 at a time. Just do 2 at a time. So start with your first 2 or your last 2, whichever you prefer. Just multiply those, and you can use the box if you like. Okay, so if we did that here. Now this is a binomial times a binomial. So you could use FOIL, first, outside, inside, last, if you can remember that. Or you could use the box. So x times x is x squared. X times 3, 3x. Negative 2 times x, negative 2x. Negative 2 times 3, negative 6. Okay, combine the like terms first before we move on to the third one. So now we have x squared plus 1x minus 6. So now there's the solution for those. So I'm going to put that in its own parentheses. And now let me bring the third one, the last one, down. Okay, so now I have a trinomial times a binomial, and I'm going to multiply this. So you could use the box for this one. And you also, some people wonder, do I have to do 3 this way and 2 across horizontally? No, you could change the order. You could make it, you could put the x and the plus 1 over here, and then the other 3 terms up here and make it horizontal if you prefer that. Multiplication is commutative, meaning we can change the order around and not change the answer. All right, so then we would just multiply these much like we did before. And that's going to get us to our answer. So x squared, negative 6x, 1x squared, 1x, negative 6. Finally, combine our like terms. I'm running out of space. Sorry, we would get x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. So there is our finished multiplied product there. Okay, this one is actually a little bit easier because this one is just a monomial times a binomial. So this one I can just do real quick. 2x times x would be 2x squared. 2x times 5 is just 10x. And that one's done. Okay, so now I just need to multiply 2x squared plus 10x times x minus 3. So we could use a box for this. Again, not required, but if you find it helpful, definitely feel free to use it. There's 1x minus 3. Don't forget those x to the 1s. Don't leave them off. 2x squared times 1x is just 2x cubed. 2x squared times negative 3 is negative 6x squared. 10x times 1x is 10x squared. And 10x times negative 3 is negative 30x. We just have one set of like terms here on the diagonal, so we'll add those. We get 2x cubed, 2x cubed plus 4x squared minus 30x. And there's that one.